Greetings to everyone. Shalom from my 900-year-old house in the old city of Yerushalayim. Hi, some of you I have seen here when you've come on trips to Israel, right?
Yes.
Some of you maybe are new to me.
Yes.
So welcome everyone.
Yes.
So Rosh Hashanah is a strange day. From the beginning of the month of Elul, the Hebrew month we're in now, for 40 days, we are involved in tshuva. Tshuva means turning around, changing our ways. It's a time to introspect, to really examine our deeds, to examine our behavior patterns, our habits, and to try to make real changes. Now, when I say try to make real changes, Elul is such a miraculous month because any effort you put in to actually changing in the month of Elul, it's like somebody tipped you off to junk bonds or something. Like you buy a stock for £1 and in 40 days it's worth 100,000 pounds. I mean, literally, that's the way it is with Elul. Any effort you put in to trying to do tshuva, to change, to improve, to grow spiritually, Hashem just comes in and like boosts you up. It's terrific. And this process of tshuva that starts on the first day of Elul, we're now around the 20th, 21st day of Elul, it ends only on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the crescendo, where like Yom Kippur, you really like, you're beating your heart whether you're going to be in synagogue or not. I don't know what's going on in England. Here in Israel, it seems like many women will be davening at home. But wherever you are, you're clapping your heart. I spoke harshly. I was dishonest with money. I spoke untruths. And you're really, a crescendo of tshuva. Now, in the middle of this 40-day span of tshuva comes Rosh Hashanah, a week from tomorrow night. It should scare all of us. And Rosh Hashanah is not at all about tshuva. Not at all. You don't do tshuva on Rosh Hashanah. What is Rosh Hashanah about? So our sages tell us very emphatically, Rosh Hashanah is not about tshuva. Rosh Hashanah is not about us at all. Rosh Hashanah is about crowning Hashem king. So it's a little funny for me, a Yankee, to be talking to you British people about kings. I have no personal experience of ever having lived in a country that had a king or a queen. I spent the first 37 years of my life in the United States and this last blessed 35 years in Israel. So what do I know about kings and queens? But I happen to remember, and I bet very, very few of you who are online with us today this evening can remember. I remember the coronation of Queen Elizabeth. I was 5 years old and we saw it on television. And even at the age of 5, I was so impressed because she had such a long train to her gown. So does anybody else raise your hand? Does anybody else was old enough to see the
I was born in that year.
You were born in that. Well, you didn't get to see it. Okay. No, I'm not seeing any raised hands. Okay. So what is a coronation? Coronation is when you make someone king or queen. And it's very strange to talk about crowning Hashem king. That Rosh Hashanah is the coronation of the king. Because Hashem is king. So what does that have to do with whether we make him king or don't make him king? Hashem is king, that's reality. So the answer is that there are two ways for a king to be a king. One is he can conquer, like send in an army to conquer some territories, to conquer another country, and then he becomes king. And he has these subjects he has subjugated, and they're like pawns. And he is the king, he's ruling, but not by the will of those who are in the kingdom. There's a famous,
Sara Yocheved
famous
Rigler.
comic. I don't know, do you get the comic Garfield in England? That cat, there's a very fat cat. So Joanne's kind of saying yes or no, I don't know.
Yeah, we've
Anyway.
heard of it.
Yeah, so Garfield's a fat cat.
Joanne's saying yes because Garfield said he's not fat, he's just big boned.
So anyway, there's one famous cartoon many, many years ago. Rabbi David Aaron talks about this a lot, where someone asked Garfield, do you believe in God? And Garfield says, I don't know, but there's somebody out to get me. So if you have a sense that Hashem, the ruler, the king, is out to get you, then that's the relationship of king to subject that is not what Rosh Hashanah is about, and it's not what Judaism is about. The other way that you crown the king is you want to crown the king. I remember Queen Elizabeth's coronation, everybody, not just in England and the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth, but in America too. We wanted her to be queen. We loved it. We loved the whole pageantry and everything. Yes, crown her queen, So that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at Rosh Hashanah as the day where you decide that you want Hashem to control your life. Now, this is a very hard thing to do because the truth is most of us do not want Hashem to control. I mean, we're willing to let Hashem be in control sometimes, even most of the time. There's certainly times that all of us experience where we do not want Hashem to be in control because we want to be in control. So this goes back to the Garden of Eden. And if you'll remember in the Garden of Eden, the serpent, when the serpent was trying to seduce Hava into eating from the fruit of the Eitz Hadas Tov Hara, the fruit of the tree of knowledge, he said, eat it, you'll be like gods. And that's what got her to do it. Why? Because there's nothing more seductive than the idea of, oh, I can be in control. I can be God. Now, none of us want to be God of the whole universe. We don't want that job. But we all like to be God of our own little fiefdom, our own Arba Amos, our own, my own home, my own family, my marriage, my finances, what's going on at work. I just want to have control there. So I want to ask you right now to put in to write to me privately, because it might be something you don't want to share. I'd like everyone to really take a moment and think, what is the part of your life where you do not want to cede control to God? You don't trust that it'll come out the way you want to come out. You don't think, that, you may not, whatever it is, for whatever reason, you want to keep control. You're not willing to give control to God. So just put it there in the chat box where it says, privately to me, and just name, think for a minute. I mean, we'd all like to be great tzaddikim and say, oh yes, Hashem is the king. I said surrender control, but we all have areas where we do not surrender control so easily to God. So what's your area? I'm not seeing any messages. Is it because why? Oh, here, yes. I'm now I see one. I'm just going to read off the answers. I'm not going to say your names. You don't have to worry. You're not. That's why I want this to be private. You're not exposing anything.
Sippy, is there an easier way to tell anybody to write?
So I'll mention some things that have come in. Parenting, fertility, that's a big one. It says in the Talmud that Hashem keeps the keys to only 3 things: rain, children, fertility, and death. Those keys he does not surrender to anyone. Okay, fertility, someone's saying money, someone else says, my cleaning lady showing up. Someone else says parnasa. Someone else says health. Someone says nothing, I trust him. Very good, if it's true. You're a very big tzedekis. Someone else says, how my kids turn out. I wish I could control that. Someone else says control of my surgery time. Someone else says health. Okay, anybody else want to say? Someone else says there is nothing really consciously, but I worry about illness and don't want certain things to be done a certain way. So that really is me trying to control and not trusting. Someone else says family health. So I want to go back to this one, someone who wrote, there's nothing really consciously, but I worry about illness and don't want certain things to be done in a certain way. So just about illness, like coronavirus. We do not want the people we love, especially if they are, or if they're high risk, to get coronavirus. And of course, we shouldn't want them to get coronavirus. We should do everything we can to prevent it. But the idea that if somebody gets it, someone you love gets it, that Hashem is in control. And you can't blame the Chinese. I was talking to someone the other day who was, it's the Chinese, they did it on purpose to try and take over the world. You can't blame it on the Chinese. You can't blame it here in Israel. We're great at blaming the health minister, the government, the people who aren't following the guidelines, the government for imposing the guidelines. Blame, blame, blame. But the truth is that Hashem and only Hashem is in control. So we'll talk about the parameters of that in a few minutes. Someone says, I wish I could control my time. And someone else says, relationships not working out and heartbreak. It's like a shidduch. It doesn't work out, like can be very, very painful. The truth is, of course, that Hashem is in control of everything except our free will choices. It says, the first two of the 10 commandments, there is a controversy among the commentators about whether, first of all Jewish souls were present at Sinai. All Jewish souls, including the souls of converts. We were all at Sinai. We all heard the voice of God. We all heard the 10 commandments directly from God in this massive national mystical experience. But did we hear only the first two of the 10 commandments, or did we hear all 10? So this is the controversy, because the text itself says we were very afraid after we heard one, and it was like, it was like too much for us to take. Our souls left our bodies, it came back. Second one, at some point we said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you talk to God, like this is too much for us. Okay, but the two first commandments are really the bedrock of Judaism. They are also considered what are called the 6 constant mitzvot. They're the first 2 of the 6 constant mitzvot. In other words, mitzvot usually have to do with a time or situation, hearing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. This year we don't hear it because it's Shabbos on the first day, but we'll hear it on the second day. You eat matzah on Pesach. You don't speak Lashon Hara when the situation comes up where some juicy gossip and somebody that you're with or talking to on the phone doesn't know. And so in that situation, you get to perform the mitzvah of not speaking Lashon Hara. But there are 6 mitzvot that are constant mitzvot that you can do at any moment of the day, all day long. And the first 2 of those 6 mitzvot are the same as the first 2 of the 10 commandments. And the first one is, the first of the 10 commandments is, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, asher hotzicha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. I am the Lord your God in singular. We don't get this in English. Your can be singular or plural, but in Hebrew it's clearly singular, Elokecha. I'm the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Our rabbis tell us, although this doesn't even sound like it's a mitzvah at all, it sounds like it's just a statement. Our rabbis tell us this is a mitzvah to believe. This is the mitzvah of emunah, to have faith in God. And what does it mean to have faith in God? That God, there is one operative force in the universe that created everything, that sustains everything, that directs everything. One God. The second of the 10 commandments is Lo yeh lecha Elohim acharim al panai. It shouldn't be for you any other. Now the word Elohim is often translated as gods. You shouldn't have any other gods before me. And so we think, well, I'm not a pagan, that's no problem. But it really means, the word Elohim means powers or forces. So it really means you shouldn't believe in any other forces. That includes political forces, economic forces, physical forces of cause and effect, health forces, like is it up to the health minister, is it up to the World Health Organization? Like you don't believe in any other operative force in the universe, only God. That's the second mitzvah. So one is like the positive mitzvah, and one is the negative side of it. Believe in one operative force in the universe who is, and it's very clear that God chose when he introduced himself to us, not to define himself as the God who created the universe, which is so much more impressive, but the God who took you out of Egypt, out of bondage. In other words, I care about you, I love you, and I will act in human history and in your personal life for your benefit. That's the first commandment. So God is the only operative force in the universe. Now, where does that leave you? Are you a disempowered puppet if God is totally in control? So I want you to imagine that you have two pipes extending from you. We call one of these pipes the inflow pipe and one the outflow pipe. I give a marriage workshop for married Jewish women every Tuesday evening with Jewish workshops. And we have many, many concepts and tools. You're all invited to join. If you'd like to go on my website, sararigler.com. So one of our concepts is this concept of the two pipes, which is, of course, has its source in Jewish wisdom and Torah. One pipe, the outflow pipe, is your thoughts, words, and actions that come out of you. The other pipe is the inflow pipe. That pipe includes everything else. Everything that isn't your thoughts, words, and actions are the inflow pipe. So that's how much money you'll get, whether a check comes in the mail or a bill comes in the mail, how your husband speaks to you, how your boss treats you, how your neighbor acts, how your kids act. All that stuff comes that is not your thoughts, words, and actions, is coming toward you. Even your health, because it's not a matter of your thoughts, words, and actions, although of course you can determine them. We'll talk about that. You can eat healthy, you can exercise, but even people who eat healthy and exercise also get sick. I mean, that one of the terrible things about coronavirus is we've seen people, in Israel, we've lost people as young as 19 years old to coronavirus. So a person can be healthy and eat healthily and exercise and still get sick and still die. So that's inflow pipe, everything that happens to you. Now, here's the really important thing to remember. You have zero control over the inflow pipe because Hashem, God, is totally in control. But you have 100% control over the outflow pipe, which is your thoughts, words, and actions. Hashem gave us, it says, Hakol b'yadei shamayim, chutz me'yirat shamayim. Everything is in the hands of heaven, except our moral choices. So even in the sphere of outflow pipe, our thoughts, words, and actions, not everything is up to, it's not true 100% control. Because Rav Eliyahu Dessler who spent really the prime of his life in England, Gateshead in London, and wrote his tremendous letters. He never wrote a book, but Mechtav Meliachu, his letters are so, have really changed the perception in the Jewish world of certain things. So he explained that everybody has a point of choice. Rebbetzin Heller Gottlieb calls it a choice box. There are things that are below your choice box and things above your choice box. So for example, like the big choice in life, give or taker choice. So there are things that are below all of us who are on this class tonight. There are things you wouldn't do. You go to a friend's house or somebody else, you go to pick up something at somebody's house. It could be somebody you don't even know or do know, or friend, acquaintance, stranger, and you see a 50-pound note just sitting there, like on the desk, and nobody's in the room at that moment. There's nobody who's on the broadcast tonight who would take that 50-pound note. It's not in our realm of choice. It's not in our choice box because of the way we were raised, because of our values. We're not going to take it. It's not, there's no inner question, should I take it, shouldn't I take it? We're not going to take it. And on the other end of the spectrum, that's the lowest point, a very low point on the giver-taker spectrum. On the high point of the giver-taker spectrum, there's Representative Sara Kramer, whom I wrote the book Holy Woman about, who spent the prime of her life, some 20 years, taking care of multiply handicapped children. This was in Israel in the 50s and 60s and early 70s when there was no institution for them. I mean, really seriously handicapped incontinent children. Some of the children were like 20 years old by the time they died, you know. So they weren't such children actually, but she did this for 20 years without a single day off or a vacation, and she was not paid for it. So if you had asked me, am I willing to do that? It's not even in my choice box. It's so high, it's so beyond my choice box. No, it's not in my choice box. There's no, well, should I or shouldn't I? No. Your choice box is that area where you have some conflict, Rav Dessler explains, and there's like, it's hard for you because you could go either way. So in that area, you have free choice. So when we say Hashem controls everything, he controls everything except your free choice. And I've just explained the area in which every one of us has free choice. Now, of course, as we grow spiritually, our choice box gets more elevated. God forbid that we go down and our choice box goes down. Let me see if there's any questions about that. Someone says, I'm old enough to know I control nothing. It's all Hashem. I want to say that I'm also old enough. I don't know if you're older than me. I'm 72. But the big things, it's easier to accept that they're from Hashem. The small things. When I got 15 years ago, a diagnosis of cancer, of breast cancer, I was like, oh, it's Hashem, it's all good. But I'm going to give you an example of something that, where you might not be so big about ceding control to Hashem. Let's say, someone says, I don't look 72. Well, I am. So I live in the old city of Jerusalem, right next to the Temple Mount. Anyway, I see, oh, Joanne, don't be so jealous. Come on. Anyway, let's say this situation. Let's say it's either the night before the holiday of Sukkot or the night before some very important event in your family, and your washing machine breaks down. And you need to wash clothes. You need everybody to have clean clothes for tomorrow. And you can't get a repairman to come at this hour. You can't go out and buy a new washing machine and get it delivered at this hour. Like at that moment, are you capable of saying, Hashem has decreed that this washing machine should break down? Or do you say, I don't accept it. No, the washing machine has to work and we need clean clothes. That's the kind of thing. That's the real test, not the big things. Yes, it's so obvious that the big things come from Hashem, but what about the little things? Those are the areas where it's so hard to cede control to Hashem. So let's look at this, at the outflow pipe. Let's say the washing machine has broken down. And you have free choice to choose your thoughts, words, and actions. So let's start with thoughts. My thoughts would be, when I see that the washing machine is not working and is not going to work no matter what I do, my thoughts would be, this is terrible. I can't deal with this. I need clean clothes for tomorrow. This is catastrophic. Given that you have free choice to choose your thoughts, what are some alternative thoughts that you might think in this situation? If you really were able to say, it's Hashem who decreed that the washing machine break down. And for this, you could write them in, but you could also just unmute yourself. And because this isn't like such a private thing. What, if you really give yourself a moment to imagine, you really say, this comes from Hashem. Hashem is in control. What are some thoughts you might have rather than, this is catastrophic?
You might just put on Facebook, help anybody know a repairman.
That would be called an action. I'm talking about a thought. We're going to do them one at a time. Thoughts, then words, and actions. What's a thought? For first thing, that everything starts with our minds. So what's the thought other than, this is catastrophic. I can't believe this is happening. No, no, no. I don't accept that this is happening.
There might be a reason for it.
Oh, there might be a reason for it. Okay. Something else?
I'd hope there should be a kapara for it. It should be for a kapara.
Beautiful. It could be a kapara. The idea of a kapara is, or as we say in English, that we all have spiritual debt. And when something happens in the physical world, like a small physical injury or a financial loss or a washing machine breaking down, that we are paying that spiritual debt. And so we won't have to pay it off in a bigger way. Because implied with the idea of kapara is that we're paying a smaller price. We're getting a discount on what we might have to pay because all suffering pays. So the suffering of having the washing machine not working, especially when you really need it, could be a kapara. Like, thank you, Hashem, it's just the washing machine. Good, okay. Anybody else want to give any alternative thoughts? So someone's saying, why do I deserve this aggravation? So that is still on the level of, I don't accept that Hashem has ordained this for me. That's still on the level of rejecting the will of Hashem. Someone else says, this should be my worst problem. Yes, so that's on the level of, it's for, the Baruch Hashem, it's not worse. Someone else is saying, and I'm glad you're being honest, Hashem must hate me. I'm glad you're being honest when you said that. Because to cede control to Hashem, to coronate Hashem king on Rosh Hashanah, you need to trust that Hashem loves you. Because who would cede control to somebody who doesn't love you and doesn't have your best interests at heart? Like, that'd be crazy. So this is really the key. Now, Joanne, is it possible, or your high-tech person, possible to show, I have something here. If I put it up on my screen, is it possible to show my screen?
Sippy, can you do the screen share?
Sure. What should I be sharing?
I have something I can, here. I put it up on my screen. Can you see my screen?
No, if you click on the top of your Zoom, it will say share content.
Here with the
Maybe
little
at the bottom of
Those three dots.
those three dots, share content. I don't have it.
Share screen.
I have stop video, mute my audio, unpin video, rename, add profile picture, hide self view.
You may not. Do you want to email it?
Unpin video. Should I unpin video?
No, that won't help.
It should come with share content.
On the three dots, I'm not getting it.
Where else would it be if it's not by those three dots, Sippy?
Participant has been not shared, so she can't share as a participant.
Hang on, needs, what did you say?
She can't share as a participant.
Okay.
It's the setting.
Can you email it? Can you email it to Sippy and then she can share it for you?
That will take time. What about host disabled attendee screen sharing? Can you just
Let me see if I can.
attendee screen share?
Attendee screen share, yeah.
I'll make you a co-host, Robinson Regler, and then you can screen share.
Okay. Do I have to do anything? You're the co-host now. Great. Okay, screen share. There, here. Preview. I want to make it big.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So this is, it's something I was going to speak about later, but since one of you said that when the washing machine breaks down, your immediate thought is Hashem hates me, that this is very important to go into, because this is really the key to trusting Hashem enough to give him control of your life. So this comes from a book called Constant Connection by Rabbi Yitzhak Cooper Smith here at Esha Torah in the Old City. It's from his book, Constant Connections. It's based on a classic, 1,000-year-old classic of Jewish thought called Habos Halavavos, the Duties of the Heart. And Duties of the Heart, the author talks about 7 key realities, truths. And Rabbi Cooper Smith has turned them into affirmations. So you can take a screenshot of this. Wait a second, are they all showing? Wait a second, I want to just...
Maybe what we'll also be able to do is rather if you email it to me after,
okay.
or to Tzipi, and then we'll share it with everyone.
So
I can see it perfectly big.
You have it at the bottom of the screen, and you press on the small picture, it'll dominate the whole screen.
well, maybe I can just move it up. Small.
You've got it small on the screen. If you press your finger on the on your display, it'll go and it'll take the full screen.
Okay, yeah, on ours it is the full screen. It's fine.
Okay, good. Okay, so what does this say? These are 7 basic principles that you have to know about God and you and your relationship. One is, see, the book is talking about Hashem is the creator, the sustainer, and the supervisor. So he puts it in those terms. Hashem, the creator of the universe, loves me more than anyone else in the world possibly can. In other words, for you to trust someone, to abdicate control of your life to that one, what are the 7 requirements that one would have to have? One is you have to know that that one loves you more than anyone else in the world possibly can. The second is that Hashem cannot be distracted and lose sight of me. His love for me is constant and uninterrupted. Well, you could not say that about any non-infinite being. No matter how much your husband may love you, or your children may love you, or your mother may love you, they do they go to sleep at night. But in order to really trust someone, you'd have to know that his love for you is constant and uninterrupted. He's always on duty, he never goes to sleep. The third is that Hashem has the power to give me anything I need or want. So this could only be Hashem, because again, no matter how much a human being may love you, they don't have the power to give you anything you need or want. The fourth is that Hashem knows exactly what's best for me. He understands it better than I do.
Can you mute everyone?
What are we saying, Joanne?
No, I just want to mute everybody. I'm okay? Great.
So that Hashem knows that the one to whom we abdicate control of our lives, you have to believe that that one knows exactly what's best for me, and he understands me and knows better than I do what's ultimately in my best interest. So if my washing machine isn't working tonight, Hashem must know that this is what is ultimately best for me. Perhaps it's a kapora, perhaps it's an asayim, a test, but it's when this somehow, it doesn't feel like it's in my best interest. It feels like it's I. But if you really internalize these 7 affirmations, you would understand that the broken washing machine comes from Hashem, and Hashem understands me and knows better than I do what is ultimately in my best interest. Number 5 is Hashem has taken care of me since birth and has already given me far more than anything I can request. So the idea that there are people who've had very hard lives, and they feel that God hates them because otherwise, why didn't God give them better parents or nice husband or children or like all the things that God could so easily give. So this is a failure to understand and realize and be conscious of how Hashem is taking care of you since birth. I mean, no matter how many trials and tribulations we've had in our life, I mean, we see, we hear, we have 10 fingers, we have an opposable thumb, we have a heart that keeps beating, we have lungs that can breathe. I mean, like goes on and on and on. Our liver alone, one organ performs 500 different functions, manufactures 1,000 different chemicals. I mean, like the more you know about your own body, the more you would understand that Hashem has been taking care of you since birth in a zillion different ways. Number 6, there is no other power in the universe in which to rely. No one can interfere with my success or cause me harm. Only Hashem, the sustainer of the universe, can grant me success and alleviate my troubles. So that's something that the COVID-19 pandemic, I think, has taught all of us. If we had any feeling before the pandemic that we could rely on government or the experts or the health experts or the political, powers that be or anything, COVID-19 has certainly taught us that there's no other power in the universe in which to rely. And number 7 is like a loving father, Hashem generously gives me what I need if it is ultimately good for me, and not only what I strictly deserve based on my merit. So this is based on an understanding of what is the purpose of your life. Your soul came down into this body, into this physical world, for only one reason. That is to do some kind of a tikkun, a rectification, to learn a lesson, to grow spiritually, to fix something. That's the only reason we are here. And once you understand that, then you understand that Hashem, and his love for us, helps us accomplish the purpose for which we came into the world, which is to do that rectification, to learn that lesson, to fix whatever we need to fix within ourselves, in our relationships, and in the world. Okay, so now how do I get out of this? Oh, stop share. Oh, there I am. Okay. So, okay. So someone writes, I'm going blind in both eyes with very rare disease, no cure, only trial study. And when 2 top doctors told me, I was alone in the room and silent. And I said to the doctor, I trust Hashem, and I am very religious and believe in God, and said that like God made this terrible disease, in a second he can make a cure. And I snapped my fingers. I do trust Hashem and what he does for me. So this is very beautiful, that you could say that at a time when you're told that you're losing eyesight in both your eyes. But I want to amplify that a little bit. When you say you trust God, that means that you know the things we just went over, these 7 affirmations, which are a good thing to say every single day, or maybe more than once a day. Oh, I'm getting a notice that somebody's waiting to be admitted. This is somebody else on the, okay.
Yeah, I've got it, it's fine.
Okay. So trusting in God means that you know that what he does for you is ultimately the best for you. It doesn't mean that you know that he'll do what you want. So what we don't know, and please God, and I hope that you know that Hashem comes up with a cure, and that and that you will be cured and be able to see always your whole life. But if Hashem decides that what you need to fix in this lifetime can only be done from the place of not seeing, then trusting Hashem also means that you won't see. Because trusting Hashem means knowing what is best for me. I read a story just the other day. Joanne, we started 5 minutes late. Can we go 5 after?
Yeah.
Okay. I read an amazing story the other day about a woman. She was in her 30s, a pediatric nurse, worked in a hospital. And she, one day she felt her eyes were a little dry or something. And she was driving home and stopped at a pharmacy and got some eye drops, regular eye drops, non-prescription, over-the-counter eye drops. And she came home with the eye drops in her eyes. And suddenly her eyes started to burn and she couldn't see. And she was rushed to the hospital, to the emergency room. And the doctor said, somebody tampered with those eye drops. They put lye in them. And she became blind, totally blind like that. A woman in her mid-30s. Because somebody tampered. Can you imagine kind of a mishigas? Somebody puts lye in eye drops. And there was nothing that could be done. And for a year, she spent a year lying in bed being bitter and angry. How could this have happened to her? She couldn't work as a pediatric nurse the way she was anymore. And she, just bitter and angry for a year. And then she said, she's telling her own story. After about a year, at one point, she decided, okay, people are blind. I've seen blind people. They walk with either a long white stick or a dog. Well, I like dogs. So I'm going to get a guide dog. And she took responsibility for her own happiness and her own state of mind. And she got up and she found somehow the phone and she found somehow the number of guide dogs for the blind. And she got involved and she went and they said, well, first you have to take a course and blah, 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 blah. And she got more and more involved in it until she became a full-time paid worker for guide dogs to the blind. And she became a happy person. And she describes this whole long story, how, she used to love bird watching. And then after she became blind, and after she became guide dog thing, she was walking in the forest with her husband and she heard a bird song and she used to be a bird watcher and she couldn't bird watch anymore. But she said to her husband, is the bird that's making that noise, does that have such and such a beak and such tail feathers and such color on its wings? And he said, yes. And she says, well, then, and she named what it is. And so then she and her husband together became bird watchers because he could see and she could identify because she knew the sounds and she knew what they looked like. But the point is that, and this goes for, somebody mentioned fertility. I struggled for 5 years with secondary fertility. So I know what that's like. Very, very painful. It's like, why can't Hashem just give me the baby? But trust in Hashem means truly believing that He knows what's best for me and He gives me what is ultimately best for me, which is what's best for me spiritually, which may not be the easiest and the most easy to be happy about alternative. Oh, someone says, my husband tells me to go to sleep at night when having a bad day. Hashem is up all night. That's great. Leave it to Hashem. Okay, so where do I want to go now? So, well, I wanted to go, back to the washing machine with words and actions. So let's just do words and actions together. So my words would be, I can't believe this is happening to us now. This washing machine is only 4 years old. Washing machine is supposed to last 6 years old. The company is no good. They cheated us. I'd really be angry. They're crooks. They make junk. Okay, given that you have control over your words, what are some other words you might utter that would be a better choice if you understood that Hashem, not the company that made the washing machine, determined that the washing machine should break down now? You can speak right out. You don't have to write it.
Could call it a kapara. You could call it a gift from Hashem, getting a new washing machine. We could call it a days off of washing, Rosh Chodesh, I don't know.
Okay. What about actions? So actions, like a place that I sometimes go, and I'm sure many of us go, is I take my frustration out on my husband. So I would say, you know, like here I'm in the middle of the washing machine not working, trying to think what to do. And my husband says, what time will dinner be ready? What? How can you even talk about dinner? Don't you know what's happening? You know, like, well, how can you be so insensitive, right? So, but what's another, if you understood that it's from Hashem, you would never go to the place of blaming or complaining. What is it? What are some, and once you don't go to the place of blaming and complaining and catastrophizing, then your mind is much more peaceful and you could actually think of some actual solutions to the problem. So what are some things you could do if you were really calm enough to understand that this is from Hashem and I accept it is from Hashem and I accept that it's ultimately good for me?
There must be a reason for this. I don't like it, but there must be a reason for it. And it's, yeah,
Good.
not the worst.
It's a lot healthier not to get upset.
Well, you can tell yourself it's healthier not to get upset, but then you're upset. You have to give yourself an alternative. You have to give yourself a reason not to get upset. So let's say you've gotten to the place where the reason to not get upset is you understand that Hashem is in control and that this comes from Hashem. And I'm giving up control to Hashem. So what are some actions you could take to deal with the situation?
Phone up a
You
friend.
could hand wash what you need immediately.
Okay, that's a good solution. Somebody's saying,
Phone up a
Hashem
friend.
telling me I can go get some new clothes, so I'll need to do less washing. Okay. What else?
Drop it at my daughter's house.
I'll wash at my daughter's house. Good. Okay. Someone else is saying
There's a laundromat.
not something worse.
Right across the road from me.
Someone's saying take to a friend. Someone's saying it's my test and not something worse.
Maybe it's to help you bond with your neighbours that you haven't spoken to for a while.
Maybe it's so I'll knock on the door of my neighbors that I haven't seen, who really are lonely and really need, you know, a mitzvah to do. Okay, someone else is saying it's
Somebody
better.
else needed a mitzvah. So you're giving them the washing so they get a mitzvah.
Good, good. Someone says it's bad enough that it happened, so feeling bad about it won't make it better. It will make it worse. Hashem would want me to be besimcha in all the circumstances he sends. That's certainly true. Okay, so this is what I mean by making Hashem king on Rosh Hashanah. The small stuff, not the big things where we say, oh, of course it's Hashem. The small things, everyday things that come up in our lives every day. Are we willing to cede control to Hashem? This is the work of Rosh Hashanah. It means that I, of my own volition, give over control of my life, what happens to me, and the inflow pipe, I give it over to Hashem. I stop fighting, I stop resisting, I stop complaining about what Hashem ordains for me, and I accept that what Hashem ordains is the best possible thing for me, whether I can see its benefits or not. And this requires trusting Hashem. And that's why we have those 7 affirmations that are so important. So on Rosh Hashanah, what happens is that Hashem does a spiritual MRI on each of us. And he determines how much suffering or trial or tribulation that each one of us will need in the coming year in order to do our tikkun, to learn our lessons and to grow spiritually, which is the purpose for which our souls came down into this world. Now, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there's 3 things that can change the decree. Those 3 things are prayer, giving tzedakah, and doing tshuva. All of those things, we don't have time to go into them. Maybe before Yom Kippur, somebody with seed will talk about them. But the idea is, how can you change a decree? If I do tshuva, it means I on my own am growing spiritually. Hashem doesn't have to give me X amount of suffering. because I on my own am choosing to change myself. If I give tzedakah, it means I on my own get to a place where I see the needs of other people as being even more important than my own needs. Tzedakah, by the way, this is the time to give tzedakah. Give tzedakah. Give as much as you can afford to tzedakah. Tzedakah does not mean meiser. Jews are supposed to give 1/10 of our income to charity. We're all supposed to do that. In other words, you get $1,000 get paid $1,000. You really only got paid $900 because $100 of that is Hashem's and it's supposed to go to a charity. But at this time of year, in addition to giving meiser, tithing, we should be giving tzedakah. Tzedakah means I take my money that I could use for my needs and I give it to somebody else who needs. And I put their needs ahead of mine. And Hashem looks at us and he says, oh, so she doesn't have to learn to put others first through suffering because look, she did it on her own volition. And the same goes for prayer. Prayer is saying, Hashem, I know you're in control. I know the only way that this person who's sick is going to get better is up to you. I totally put my faith in you and trust, and I pray, and pray is giving over control to Hashem. And again, I once asked Rebbe Heller, why does all suffering pay? It's principle in the Talmud, all suffering pays. And I said, why does all suffering pay? And she said, well, for whatever other deeper Kabbalistic reasons there are, all suffering humbles us. Because we find ourselves in situations where I can't get myself out of this situation. I'm suffering. I have something physically wrong with me. I didn't get the job. I lost my job. I didn't get the baby. I'm not in control. And that lesson is a very valuable lesson. So I would like to conclude with an amazing story. As I mentioned, I have this marriage webinar. And the women in the webinar send in their success stories. So this is a story from one of, it's called the Kesher Wife Club. Kesher means connection. So a Kesher wife is somebody who chooses connection. So someone's wrote in here, wrote in this story. It's an amazing story. The problem is, she said, that we own a house that we wanted to sell, but have not succeeded. So a year ago, we rented out our small, clean, nice house for a family I got to know, and we felt that it was from Hashem. After a few months, I started to get a strange feeling that they were not honest with us. Both me and our adult children felt the same thing, and we tried to convey it to my husband as best we could, but he didn't listen. My husband did not feel the same way and defended this family instead. He believes only the good and finds it difficult to speak out, often at the expense of the rest of us in the family. I sometimes felt that I would be suffocated by their arrogance and my husband's benevolence to help them. It felt like sitting on a bus stampeding toward a precipice and I could do nothing but watch it happen. I felt that a lot of my husband's problems are due to a low self-esteem. Now, I want to stop here and just comment. At that point, when she saw that these people that she felt were not honest, were not good tenants, and her husband is being so nice to them, she could have wrested control from her husband. She could have said, I don't care what you think, these people are dishonest and it's not good for us, blah, blah, blah. She could have done that. And that might have been much better for their pocketbook, but much worse for her marriage. When you take control from your husband, he gets the message, I think you're incompetent. And that message can destroy your relationship. So she made a very good choice. She didn't think her husband was handling the situation well because his low self-esteem was keeping him from asserting himself to tell these tenants that they weren't doing things right. But nevertheless, even though she felt that he wasn't handling the situation well because of his low self-esteem, she did not grab control. This is about control, this story. So what did she do? She says, I began to pray to Hashem for my husband to become a better leader of our family, more self-assertive. I have tried not to criticize or complain and instead go to God because I do not want to be antagonistic against my husband. I have been involved in the Kesher Wife Inner Circle. That's my weekly webinar. a long time now, and I know my lessons about not committing the 3 sins. We say the 3 sins, and we spell sins C-I-N-S, are criticizing, correcting, and controlling. This is really what destroys a marriage. Criticizing, correcting, and controlling. So this wife, she knew she shouldn't criticize, correct, and control her husband. She said, I have Hashem to take control. Now, you need to follow this story very carefully, because what's happening here is she is not taking control, even though she really has a more accurate idea of what's going on with these tenants. She's not taking control again away from her husband, and she is giving control to Hashem. But it has been a hard time. I've tried to convey to the children not to be rebellious against their father, to honor him and not speak badly of him, which has been a temptation for them when they clearly see what he doesn't see. During this year, our tenants were not particularly pleasant at all, and they also would not pay rent properly. It has placed us in a difficult financial situation, and my husband was meanwhile under pressure psychologically because of this. After much prayer and pondering, we decided to offer our tenants another much cheaper accommodation in another house we own and to put up the fancy house for sale again. They accepted, and during this summer, they were given time to move out. Then finally, something opened up my husband's eyes about the truth about this couple. Our tenants did not pay the money they were meant to pay for the house rent to us. And they just gave us the keys and they gave the house back to us. It was worse than we feared. Our house was in terrible condition. 1 year ago, it was a nice house ready for sale. Now it was in chaos. They had let their 5 dogs destroy the indoors, so 2 rooms must be torn out to remove the smell. Things were broken and some inventory that belonged to the house was missing. They had not cleaned, and every area and the windows were dirty. The once beautiful garden was completely overgrown and full of chickens and dog poop. The garden pond could not be seen for dirt. Some nice plants and arrangements I made a long time ago in the garden were destroyed and even missing. A big empty hole in the ground gaped after their rampage. It was so sad to see. We asked a professional counselor for help, and they answered that the house has fallen in value corresponding to 150,000 shekels because of this and would be impossible to sell. For my husband, it came as a shock. But for the first time in his life, he raised his voice and told the couple what bad they had done. To see him and hear him do this was to see him grow from a little boy to an authoritarian leader in less than 10 minutes. The best of all was when he later hugged me and our oldest daughter and asked us for forgiveness, that he had not seen this before. I'm convinced that all this has happened from Hashem. In other words, all this took place from Hashem to make her husband, to catapult her husband into becoming more self-assertive. But the grief was still very great when we saw the devastation. So she gave control to Hashem. Her husband moved up considerably from his weakness to greater strength, but just their beautiful house was ruined. What happened the following week was incredible. The phone rang the next day. It was a strange woman who said her parents were told that their neighbors had moved. Maybe the house would then be available for sale. This is the neighbors of this now ruined house. No, the neighbor of the ruined house are the parents of the woman who's calling on the phone. And she's saying she heard that her parents said that neighbors had moved and maybe the house would be available for sale. She was very interested to buy in order to be close to her parents. And she asked if we could consider selling to her. We were totally shocked. After she and her family looked at the house, they offered to buy it at the price that we needed. We can only thank Hashem. This is indeed a miracle. She ends her story. So she gave over control to Hashem. She didn't take control. She didn't take control because she didn't want to have a deleterious effect on her marriage. She gave control to Hashem. And in the end, Hashem, in a way that nobody could conceive of, sold the house as it was to people who wanted, location. So with that, I will end.